for chiming in. Does anybody else have any issue with seeing my screen? Oh, it was just frozen for a second. Okay. No issues now. Fantastic. Let's get started. Let's get right into it. So we're going to start with the domain one. All right, domain one of that CompTIA Security Plus 701 version. And domain one, it's what I normally like to think is the most important of them all. The reason is you learn the core concepts that you should know when it comes to security. And it takes you back from the beginning, really. It takes you from the beginning. What is the CIA? All the way until we start talking about zero trust. So it's very important, and I'm glad you guys are here so you can learn all this stuff. I ask you to pay special attention to this domain or this particular section because the rest of the other domains are going to build on top of what we're going to talk about today. So those of you who are here today, I'd like to think you are lucky because what you're going to learn today is what we're going to build on top of for the next few, weeks that we're going to be together here. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, here's the course roadmap. I sort of talked about this last week, so I'm just going to fly through it really quickly so we can, get started. We're going to talk about the data. This is not part of the class, but when I'm teaching, I start with this. The reason is when you're doing security, often people think, when we're doing security, it's all about hacking, it's all about the technical, it's all about this. But companies really doesn't care about hacking or, your skills or anything like that. What they care about is, are you defending that which is valuable to them? Are you defending the critical data that the company depend on? So we're going to start the training from that perspective. I need you to do the security that matter to the organization. So when you get hired, or if you're working in security right now, you need to analyze the company. You need to understand the company and then know what is the critical data they have in their environment. And then start your security from that. Right, so I'm gonna kind of go back there, ask you a few questions so you can get that critical thinking going as well. And then from there, we're going to talk about NIST. This is going to come back on domain 5, since once we start talking about GRC. GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. All right, some of you might be interested in this. So this framework, the cybersecurity framework, which came from NIST, we're going to talk about that in, once we get to domain 5. But I want to introduce it here. The reason is it's the best thing we have when it comes to understanding your organization. So we're going to take what we just learned from this section and build on top of it with the NIST cybersecurity framework. If you're starting from scratch, building like a cybersecurity program, or you just got hired and you don't know where to begin, this framework is basically the easiest, the best way to understand where you should begin. And they recently introduced the second version of this framework, which is going to be fantastic. We're going to talk about governance, new thing that was introduced into the second version. And then we're going to see why governance is becoming huge and take a look at some of the real world attack. For example, there was an attack between SolarWind back in 2020, 2020 going to 2021-ish. And over the years, like 2 years later, the SEC, the Security Exchange in the US, is suing SolarWind for that attack. And guess who they were suing? The leadership of SolarWind. So I'm going to kind of talk about that and then tie that back into the real world. If you've watched any of my content, I like to do that so that you can understand it. I believe in stories. I believe in knowing what have happened so it can help you understand the concepts, right? Not just about, memorizing this stuff. But since I want you to pass the exam, we're going to talk about the exam stuff. So the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, availability. Then we're going to dive into the risk, the threat, the vulnerability. Who is the enemy, right? Who is the enemy that's out there? And what are some of the weaknesses that you or your organization might have that will allow this enemy to exploit your vulnerability, to exploit, basically to take advantage of the weaknesses that you might have. And then you're going to understand that in security, all we do is managing risk. That's all we do day in and day out. And then it's kind of a little bit be interesting there as we're going to tie that back to that first thing that we're going to talk about of knowing where your valuable data is. We're going to talk about non-repudiation because we're going to be on that exam. Then talk about the AAA. That's the authentication, authorization, and accounting without forgetting the I, the identification part side of things. These are going to be just the concepts, the definitions. In the later chapters, we're going to come back to all of these. For example, we have a risk management chapter or section, if you will. Then we have another section for the AAA, the identity and access management, for example. That section is going to come back to the AAA section as well. We'll talk about gap analysis. You need to know where you're vulnerable. You need to know where you are so you can build on top of that. And then talk about one of my favorite topic, at least right now, currently, zero trust. And the reason I love it is because a lot of the description that I've seen online, it's a little bit of those buzzwords. So we're going to talk about zero trust, not from me, but from the creator of zero trust, John Kindervag, the gentleman who coined the term zero trust back in 2010 when people didn't even know what zero trust was. Then we're going to talk about Google. Google implemented what they normally call a Beyond Corp, which was the response to an attack that targeted a lot of a high-tech company known as Operation Aurora. I will be coming back to all this, guys. If I'm dumping a lot at you, it's because I want you to get excited so you can have an idea of what we're going to talk about so that you can stay here, basically. But Google implemented zero trust before even knowing that they were implementing zero trust, due to an attack that happened to them back in 2009. Right? So it's going to be fun there. When I talk about Microsoft, Microsoft came up with a maturity model for zero trust. Everybody's on top of this zero trust game, without forgetting the US federal government. Joe Biden, the president of the US, signed a bunch of executive orders. It was one executive order. He signed that into an effect back in 2022, I believe. And a lot of these three-letter agencies, those three-letter agencies, I'm talking about the FBI, the CIA, the CISA, which is specifically for cybersecurity, and the NIST, they all went back and they start kind of developing zero trust frameworks. So we're going to take a look at those as well. And then we're going to talk about some of what's going to be in that exam. CompTIA, it's a little bit weird. See, a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about is about it's real world stuff. But CompTIA wants you to know, oh, well, if something's happening in a data plan of zero trust, what is taking place there? Right. So as a part of zero trust, you're going to need to know this, not because they're real world or because you're going to do them in the real world. No. Just because CompTIA wants you to know this for the sake of that exam. And I'm going to finish this. I will encourage everybody to stay until the end because towards the end, I'm going to give you my perspective on cybersecurity and then that little mentorship that you need. For those of you who doesn't know where you need to go in cybersecurity, I will give you the top 5 career tracks that you should follow. But also, I will talk to you about the trend that we see in cybersecurity, and including things like, artificial intelligence, security, quantum computing. I'm going to give you those tracks so that you or somebody who's trying to get into cybersecurity, you can tell them, look, hey, man, focus on this because this is the future. When I got started in cybersecurity, before I started in cybersecurity, I was doing system administrator. I had just graduated from college and I had this mentor, this guy who had been in cybersecurity for about 30 years, not cyber, but IT in general, for about 30 years. And he's the one who actually mentioned cybersecurity to me. I didn't even know what cybersecurity was. So the man was like, look, Francois, networking is all great. I had gotten my CCNA. Those who have heard about CCNA from Cisco. And the CCNA, I'm like, I'm going to be the networking person. And this guy who's been in the industry for about 30 years, because he saw it, he knew the future. He said, look, kid, got to focus on security. And I'm glad I did. That's why I'm talking to you right now. I'm glad I did. So that last section is going to be for me to kind of share not only why we need you in cybersecurity, but also the career tracks that you can focus on. If this sounds exciting, that's because it is. we're going to go ahead and get started. But here's another thing that I want you to know. In my classes, I start with a pop quiz. I'm trying to understand what you know. Now, eventually, I want to do this with Zoom, but TL is not here. TL is not here, and he's the one that's in charge of with my Zoom and making sure all these things are working. But what we have every session, we're gonna have a pop quiz that I will need you to answer at the beginning of the class. Then at the end of the session, we will also have another quiz. Also have another quiz about 4 or 5 questions just to see if you understand what we just finished talking about. So I want you to participate in this because if your goal is to pass that exam, this is how you pass that exam. Right? This is exactly how you pass that exam. So here is the first pop quiz, and whoever that's annotating on the screen, maybe please try to stop. Clear the screen here. Here is the pop quiz. So please take a minute, read it quietly. There's 36 of you. We can't read aloud. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to read it and then put your answer in the Zoom chat. All right. See people coming in and say confidentiality, confidentiality. Okay. Confidentiality, confidentiality. B. All right. It's a lot of B coming in. All right, can I have one person, for those of you who said B, can I have you come off mute and then tell us why? Take about 30 seconds and tell us why you choose B. Any volunteers? Yes, we can. Valerie, take it away.
I choose B because according to the question, it's talking about the file can only be accessed by the employee who need to know it, the information. That's basically the definition of confidentiality.
Love it.
To keep it secret, not everybody's supposed to know the information.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Keeping secret secret. Love it. All right, good job. And looks like we all got it right. Nobody said A or said D, but let me just go ahead and talk about this since we're gonna start talking about this.
Can I ask?
Availability. Yeah, please go ahead.
I can say I choose the A because of you said you started with the zero trust. So with the
Mhm,
zero trust, I think confidentiality goes with it. So you trust no one. So that file need to be
mhm.
confidential.
Ah, okay. That's why you choose A, you said, or that's why you choose B.
That's why I choose B. Sorry.
Okay. Absolutely. Confidentiality, which involve things like encryption, it's one of the backbone of zero trust. It's a cornerstone of zero trust. We're going to talk about all of that. All right, but so back to availability. Availability is making sure things are available when you need them. Absolutely. This is the CIA, which we're going to talk about it today. So confidentiality is keeping secret. Availability is making sure things are available when we need them, or we need to access them. Well, if something's not available, that means we don't have security. And if something is not available, that means it's secure. I usually tell students that availability is the enemy of security because if you want something, if you don't want your system to be hacked, just unplug that system from the power. You're good, right? You are good. That system is super secure, but the problem becomes where we need things to be available. Right? We need systems to be available. For that reason, we're going to make those systems available, and therefore, because those systems are available to us, that means they're also available to the bad guys. So that's where there's that balance. I'm going to teach you this, but security is all about balancing between functionality, which is the availability, and the security. So you need to find the balance because if you make something too secure, it becomes useless. People are going to start finding a way around it, right? Too much security is not security. You're going to learn that. I remember this one time we were implementing password security. Then we start forcing people to change their password every 60 days. The best practice is usually 90 days. Every 3 months, new password. With us, we said, you know what? We want to be super secure. Therefore, you changing your password every 60 days. Guess what people started doing? Actually, let me ask you this in the chat. What do you think people started doing when we require them to change password every 60 days? What do you think people started doing? Forgetting the passwords? Okay. Yeah. Password reuse. So they were reusing the old ones, reusing them, writing them down. That's what I was looking for. Yes, they started writing them down. If somebody's writing your password down, that like all the security goes out of the window. All of it. So, and I will be talk to you more about that. This one time I went to work for Walmart. The people who are in the US, they know Walmart, the big retailer in the US. And I'm there, I'm trying to upgrade the registers. And this manager, the branch manager for the entire Walmart at that particular city, not the city, I think it was a county, like one of those Walmarts, he had his password written down. And I remember being in there and thinking, hmm, what's going on here? All I'm trying to tell you guys is that availability is the enemy of confidentiality. I will tell you the difference. And in security, we are always balancing security and functionality. We want things to be functional. We want people to access things and use things, but we also want to keep those things secure. So what we do in security is about balancing the two, and that's where risk management comes in. And the I in CIA is the integrity. Integrity is making sure things are original. Things have not been tampered with, have not been changed. So if unauthorized personnel can change stuff, we have a bigger problems. So integrity is about making sure we're keeping things original and making sure that people are not changing things. Non-repudiation. The reason I'm talking about these guys right now is because I'm gonna come back to them, and it's because they're gonna be all over that exam. The thing about security plus, it doesn't really go in and say domain one CIA, domain two CIA, but the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, availability, it's all over that exam. That's why I had this particular question here. If you were reading this question and you understand it, this is how CompTIA asks their questions. So you're gonna see kind of a similar type of questions coming up as well. Non-repudiation, it's not non-repudiation. It's all about making sure people are not denying taking some kind of action. So if you did something, you can't come back and be like, "It's not me. That wasn't me." Where there is a way of us to prove is you who did this particular thing. So that's non-repudiation. You cannot repudiate taking some kind of action. All right. With that, you will see the answer. So can see the answer is absolutely confidentiality. And I'm looking at it here. Can I just say keep it simple? Yeah. Yeah. Use the weak passwords. Keep it very, yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the core foundation of security, like I mentioned, and I'm glad that you are here for it. So let's get started. Okay, like I mentioned, I want to start this training from the valuable data perspective. When you're doing security, because I want you to listen to me and listen to me carefully. When you're doing security, the company will probably have 100 things taking place at the same time, or maybe they have a bunch of things at the company, but not all those things are valuable to the company. And security most of the time is different from company A to company B. And that makes sense because not every company is created equal. So when you get hired to a company, you need to know how the company makes money. How many people here that knows the company that hire it doesn't have to be in security, doesn't have to be a cybersecurity company? But I'm sure all of you have jobs or you have worked in some places. So let me ask you this. How many of you that knows how the company makes money? If I were to ask you right now, how does your company make money? What would you say? How do they make money? Put those in the chat. How does your company makes money? I know some of you are typing. Zoom got to give us that thing where you can see people typing. From federal contracts, okay, for data analysis, for selling vaccines and stuff, for those in hospitals, right? For providing services to clients, Cass, you send that to me. So maybe you want to reply that to everybody else. All right, selling value to the public, absolutely. So let me ask you a follow-up question. Let me ask you a follow-up question. Do you think the business that you work for exists to be secure? Does your company exist so that it can be the most secure company there is? All right, some people are saying definitely, yeah, yeah. Some people are saying no, probably not. Is somebody exists to make money? Absolutely. Bingo, bingo. Some of you are saying security is like the reason why our company exists. I hope you work in security. I hope your company is either a government contractor or some kind of a government agency, because those people take security extremely serious. Or your company actually sells a security. All right, if that's what they sell, then they exist to be secure. 90% of the rest of the companies, they do not care about security. They don't care about security, and they do not exist to be secure. They exist for what one of the person here said, to make money. Mecca said it the best, to make money, to sell something to people. So security is the enabler. Security is the enabler that allows the company to do what the company does best. I want you to understand that, because often I get people that want to get into security and they think, we're just going to dive in and start securing the company and start doing that. No, whoa, take a step back, right? Take a step back. You need to know how the company makes money. You need to know the valuable data that the company must have to make money. Well, that critical data, that critical system, that if that system is not there, that company does not function. Once you understand that for your business, then you can focus your security on that, which is valuable to the company. Again, back to my point, security is the enabler. We allow the company to do what the company does best, in most of the cases, to make money. Unless if the business is a nonprofit business. Anyway, so what you're gonna get from this class is I'm going to emphasize on a data-centric security. Right? My training is going to be around that data, about knowing where that valuable data is. How many people here have heard about this a saying that goes like, "Data is the new oil"? How many of you have heard about that, and why do you think that is? Data is the new oil. I have. Cass, why do you think people say that? Data is the new currency. Yes. People can sell it for money, right? Yeah, because it has monetary. Absolutely. Everything runs on data. That's a better description. Yes. The Googles, the Microsofts, the Facebooks, they all function on the data. Now we have these AI systems that cannot be AI without training on the data. So the data becomes extremely, extremely important, which is why I am teaching you right now that when you get hired to a company, or once you work, or whatever company you work for now, you need to ask the question of, okay, what is important to this company, where that critical data is of this company, so that I can focus the security on that. Look, we're not here just so we can configure that firewall. We're not here just so we can we can convince the company to buy the latest tools, the shiny tools. We are here to secure the critical data of the company. And I want you to do that. The moment you start focusing on the critical data of that company is the moment you are going to start winning. Is the moment where you're going to start winning. Okay. For you to be able to secure this, though, there are a few things that you need to be aware of, or there are 4 fundamental questions that you need to ask your questions. And the first one is, what is your critical information? Back to that question, what is critical data? The second one is, where is it located? Be like, yeah, I think maybe it's in the cloud. Fantastic. If it's in the cloud, then let's put a defenses in place to protect that is in the cloud. You might be, okay, well, then who has access to it? One of the things that recently have become very popular or very in demand in security is identity and access management. Some of you may specialize in this, which is fantastic. But this is all about controlling who has access to what. It's about once people put their stuff in the cloud, identity and access management becomes very critical because now we need to know, okay, who's accessing this? Where are they accessing it from? And what, or in terms of systems, what is accessing this and what that thing is. So that's critical for you to ask, okay, who has access to that data? And back to that confidentiality. People need to authenticate before they can access things. Zero trust comes in and take this one step further by only giving you access you needed to do, your job and nothing less and nothing more. Another question you ask is, okay, who should have access to this? So for you to be able to answer these questions, you need to start with what we normally call the core of security. And that is one, doing your inventory. So knowing your hardware, knowing your software. And once you have taken that inventory, know which one is more valuable than the other. So you're going to have to prioritize them so you know which one is more valuable than the other. And the second one is know your software. And often people are like, wait a minute, Francois, that probably, you probably came up with that. No, I did not. The CIS controls, which I'm going to come back to in chapter 5 or domain 5, is the one that talked about this. So CIS control, they used to call these top 20, but now they call them top 18. Guys, I'm going to start putting some resources in the chat here. So share resources. I'm going to put some links there. And maybe TL, you can put those here. I say TL, but Abdul, TL is not with me today. Maybe you can put those in here. If I put them in a Zoom, please drop them in Discord so that people can always come back to those. So CIS, there's an interesting story behind CIS. This was the early 2000s. There was some things that was taking place within the DoD, the Department of Defense, in the US. So they were doing these red teaming and blue teaming exercises. Red teaming is when you have a group of hackers or attackers. They're attacking systems. They're basically attacking you. And the blue teaming is when you have a team of people who are defending that system. So it's like a sports game. Like if you know about soccer, you know how some people are trying to score a goal and some people are trying to defend them. It's exactly just like that. So at this time, early 2000, they were doing these exercises, and the hackers or the red teamers, they were finding a lot of issues. They were finding a lot of issues, and they were reporting those and be like, hey, look, we attack you, we attack you, we attack you, we attack you. Can you guys hear me okay? So something popping up here.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So these groups, they're together, they're doing this. The leader of those groups at the time, he said, because they brought those complaints to him. They're like, look, the blue teamers were like, we can't keep up. These people they're always reporting, our vulnerabilities. They're always winning, they're always attacking us. And we really can't keep up. Our defenses can't really keep up. So he said, you know what? Let's have a meeting. Right? Blue teamer, red teamer, let's sit down, and then they're going to buy pizzas. We're not going to get out of that room until we figure out the most common things that if we do them, we will win. Like we can defend the majority of the problems. So they got into that room and they came up with the top 20. They said, if we do these things, right? From the blue teamer and the red teamers, they said, if we can focus on these things, there's no doubt we're going to be better off. So they started doing that within the DoD, the Department of Defense in the US. And then over the years, other companies start joining, sharing their experiences and what they're seeing in the market. Other agencies start contributing to it. And then eventually a company known as the SANS Institute, SANS, because the SANS does a lot of training for the three-letter agencies. Anyway, so they eventually took over this. They took over the project and they say, you know what, let's make this for the public. Let's just share this with everybody so everybody can know if you do these things, you are going to win. And then eventually they created what they normally call the Center for Internet Security. And there is these two guys. It's a husband and a wife. It's basically a husband and a wife project. Their name is, I think it's James Tawala, if you can Google them. James Tawala. He still teach at the SANS. They took over this project. They now maintain it. And these are the top 18. Top 18. Again, they used to call this top 20. Top 18 controls that if you do them, you are going to win. No matter what industry you're in. You do these, there's no doubt you're going to be way better off. And guess what they said? 1 and 2. Inventory of your hardware, inventory of your software. So going back to my question of knowing where your critical data is, you're not going to know that unless you know the hardware that you're dealing with, the software, the critical software that your company depend on. So they said that, look, you can be as technical as you want, but if you don't know the device that you're protecting, or if you don't know the device that you're hacking, if you don't know that, there's no way that you can win. So this is one. There's another one I want to share, and this is from the leader of the TAO group. The TAO group is the American Hacking Division. They're APT, they're Advanced Persistent Threat. So basically, they do penetration testing for government agencies. His name is Rob Joyce. I always share this gentleman. He gave out a talk in 2016. This guy, this right here.
Are you on Medicare?
And one of the things that he talks about, one of the things that he mentioned in the talk is when they're going in and they're doing the hacking, they try to know the hardware and the software of that company that they're trying to hack into. I'm bringing you all this to that point of know your data, but also to tell you that hackers, if you ever want to be a penetration tester or pen tester, you are now going to be attacking the things you don't know they exist. So knowing your hardware, your software is important. And this is a proof. The CIS, the Rob Joyce from the NSA, all these guys are coming back. They're telling us that exactly same thing. That, oh, look, even when we're attacking, we need to know where that critical data is, or we need to know where the hardware that we're attacking is. Okay, let's keep going. And that leads me to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So in 2013, President Obama of the US signed an executive order asking the agencies to secure the critical infrastructure. Let me ask you this. What is a critical infrastructure? What is classified as a critical infrastructure?
Electrical grid.
Electrical grid. Can you put your volume up a little bit for me? Yeah, electrical grid. Guys, put those in the chat. Come on. Interact with me. What your organization depends on to stay up. Yeah, that's critical. That's critical. But I like that electrical grid, sensitive data. That is critical to that particular organization. Yeah, so in 2013, he signed an executive order. He says, we need to have a framework that can help the public manage their critical infrastructure, meaning manage their security. And then NIST, which is one of the, I want to call them agency of the US, they're always doing research on cybersecurity, and they're always publishing papers, and they call those a special publication, SPs. So NIST, in 2014, they published the first version of their niche cybersecurity framework, also known as a CSF, right? 2014, they published the first version. And this was a way of them telling the public or telling pretty much everybody, companies, private and public companies, hey, look, if you're trying to understand security, if you're trying to secure yourself, this is the best way you go by doing that. And here are a few things that they came up with. They said, you know what, you got to identify what you have. Yeah. Guys, look, that identity of knowing what you have, it doesn't go anywhere. I had to learn this the hard way. I used to think hacking was about going in there using Metasploit and start attacking and setting things up. No. Actually, it's way less than that. If you go into attacking, it's like 40% attacking, probably like another 40% writing reports and another 20% researching, right? Knowing what you are going to be attacking. So back to this. They came up with this framework. They said, okay, well, companies, you need to identify what you have. Once you've identified what you have, you need to protect it. And when it comes to identify, because I keep telling you this, but you're like, okay, well, how would you do that in a real world? Well, you take inventory. There are systems that you can use to take inventory of your environment. All right. There is a ServiceNow. How many people have heard about ServiceNow? It's one of the big ones, ServiceNow. Yeah. It's pretty good at this stuff. No, taking inventory of all your hardware, all your software. You can go old school. This is how I started when we were doing this. I use Microsoft Excel. Yeah. But this was a nonprofit company and it wasn't a lot of people. It was just around like 40 employees. So documenting the computer, the kind of operating system that is running, the applications, the software that's inside and their versions, it was really easy. But look, you start there, have your inventory, identify what you have. Then you will try to protect it. This is where a lot of us gets excited, right here, protection. This is where you go in, you put your firewalls in, right? You put your firewall in. All right, well, this is where you put your EDR, endpoint detection and response in. This is where you put your access control list. All these, I will teach you all this in this class, guys. But this is where you're going in and you're actually doing the security. You're actually putting in the shiny tools to protect the environment. And most of us like to just stay here. Oh yeah, just like to stay here. But here is the hard truth. If the bad guys want to attack you, they will attack you. And if they want to get in, they will eventually get in. So we want to make sure we do the protection, yes. But the detection side of things, it's also important. The detection, it's when we want to be able to detect things, the attacks once they come into the environment. Yes, put those defenses up, shields up. But what if something managed to get in? Well, we want to make sure we detect that as soon as we can. And I want to make sure we detect that as soon as we can. Let me ask you this. How many days do you think the bad guys can stay in your environment? Right? How many days do you think the bad guys can stay in your environment without you detecting them? $10 days. Okay. I love you say 10 days. I'm going to ask you this. Where did you get that 10 days from? Because it's like you are right on the money. Over a year or more, 4 years. Too long. Yeah, Jacqueline, you're like, yeah, man, too long. Absolutely. Somebody said 14 days. We got people saying 10 days, 10 days. It was 30 days before. It used to be 2 years. It used to be 24 months. And this is like not too long ago. This is like a few years back. But now it's definitely 10 days. Those who say 10 days is 10 days. And that's not from me either. It's from Mandiant. I'm going to share another resource with you here. Mandiant, it's a cybersecurity company that Google recently bought them that specialize in responding to incidents. They're like the best of the best. If you set up the cybersecurity frame, the ultimate cybersecurity home lab that I set it up on YouTube, I mentioned about this, right? I talk about, these guys. And the last VM you set up is from them. It's called Flare VM. It's like an instant response VM virtual machine where you can basically analyze malware and use a cyber chef and do all kinds of cool stuff. Anyway, Mandiant does a research every year because whenever something very serious happens, I'm talking about whenever a government is attacking another government, that's when a Mandiant comes in. They're like the OG of responding to incidents. So they do a research every year, and they publish this research. It's known as an M trend. Let me put this in the chat. I'm putting this in the Discord chat, guys. If you're not on Discord, please join so that you can have access to all these resources. So, and they have what they normally call dwell time. All right, dwell time. And right now, look at that. So dwell time continue to go down up to 10 days now. So if you were saying 10 days, you were right. Let me go where they talk about this specifically. There we go. There we go. So in 2023, it's going down. Dwell time, it's how many days the bad guys are in your environment without you knowing that they were there. But again, guys, look, think about this. Imagine if some kind of a bad person is in your house for 10 days. What do you think they can do in 10 days? Do you think they need 10 days? Like 10 days to attack you? Absolutely not. Sometimes they need hours. Hours. But 10 days, it's like the minimum. They're there. They're doing God knows what. And last year, it was 16, or 2022. So it's going down. It's getting a little bit better, but even though I still have my doubts, right? By the way, this is based on their data. Like I said, I'm going to teach you the security that's based on the data, and this is what they said. Okay. So back to this point of understanding, the cybersecurity framework. You need to protect your environment. You need to have your firewalls in place, absolutely. But you also need to detect anything that managed to get in. It's not the question of them or if they're going to attack you. It's the question of once they attack you, are you ready? Can you defend? Can you detect them? Can you find them as soon as you can? So right here, if you've heard about things like intrusion detection systems, IDS, give me a yes if you've heard about IDS. Put that yes in the chat. IDS, intrusion detection systems, yes, yes. Yeah, if you've heard about IDS, that's where that comes in. What about CIEM? CIEM, the Security Information Event Management. Give me another yes if you've heard about this. I've heard about that too. Fantastic. What about the IPS? Intrusion Prevention System, IPS too. All right, John. All right, some people have been learning cyber. That's good. That's good. Yeah, thank you for making those yes keep coming in. But this is all at the detection. Well, we want to detect stuff, and these are the tools that we use when we're detecting these things. So if you ever become like a SIEM engineer, Splunk engineer, ELK engineer, you're detecting things, right? Anyway, so once the bad guys manage to get in, we need to respond. And the response is part of that incident response, IR, incident response. This is where we kick them out of the network. This is where people are going to tell you, unplug the computer. If your computer is under attack, unplug it from the power source. That's all responding to the incident. Digital forensic also is here, where we're going in and we're kind of taking an image of that computer that was under attack and try to figure out what exactly took place. By the way, people who do digital forensics, they don't like you unplugging the computer from the power source. And the reason is because if the computer is under attack, there's some evidence in the RAM that they can extract from the RAM. So when you unplug the computer, everything goes away. But again, digital forensics people, if you were ever wondering, okay, I want to be part of that incident responder, I want to be part of that either threat hunting, or I want to be into the digital forensics side of things, you are going to be responding to stuff. And last but not least, it's recover. If they do some damages, if the bad guys got in and they managed to do some damages, you need to recover from that. This is where the backups comes in. Backups. You have your backups, and this is where you actually restore things if they manage to damage them. Let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest threat, cybersecurity threat of the recent 1, 2, or 3 years ago? What is the biggest threat to organizations? Staff, people, yeah. I had a mentor who said, people are, I don't want to say stupid, but people have a brain that's hard to patch. So you can fix all the issues, but it's hard to really get the human to do what they're supposed to be doing. All right. Ademola said ransomware attack, and that's bingo. That's absolutely. Yeah, it's a ransomware attack. A ransomware attack, it's when they attack your environment, right? They hack you, and then they inject your computers with what they normally call a ransom, some kind of a virus. And what happened is they take your computer hostage. They basically lock you out of that computer, right? And then they start asking you for some money. It's like all you see is just a black screen that says, we just attack you. Pay us this money if you need your computer to be usable again, or if you need what they normally call a decryption key. If you need that decryption key, go ahead and pay us $300 and pay us this much money. So a ransomware attack is the biggest threat, the biggest attack of the past 2, 3, 5 years, especially with the introduction of cryptocurrency. Guess why though companies fell a victim of a ransomware attack? Because they don't have backups. Because they don't have the up-to-date backups. Because if somebody gets into your computer, they lock you out, they encrypt everything, they tell you, look, either you pay me or I'm going to destroy everything. Well, if you have a backup, if you have a copy of the things that was in the computer, you can just tell them, hey, screw you, man. I'm going to restore everything from the backups. But computers don't have the latest backups. And that's why it needs to have this right here. Backup is very, very important. Got to make sure we can recover after the attack. And there's a research from Verizon. I'm going to share that with you as well. That talks about ransom. How it's like 80% of all the attacks is still ransomware attacks. Okay. And this framework that I'm talking about is here. I'm going to put this in the chat. Oops, put that in that wrong chat. Let me put that here. And the second version of this framework, which came out in 2024, they started drafting this in 2023. Actually, in 2018, they came up with the version 1.1. They do some minor updates. But recently, 2024, they introduced the second version, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. And that included a governance. Oh, yeah, governance. And you can see governance touches all the other things that we have talked about. And this is for a reason. So cybersecurity over the years have been looked at as a technical problem. Let those weird people look in the hoodie take care of the security. But that is changing now, right? Companies are required to take security serious, and the government is pushing them and as well. One notable kind of case is this that brought a lot of this to the light. Is this case between, actually, there's two cases. There is one with the SolarWind. SolarWind got attacked in 2020. 2020 going to 2021, I believe. They got attacked, and come to find out, it was the executives' fault. Yeah, they misled the investors. Guess what the Security Exchange Commission did? Yeah, they sue them. A lot of companies, government agencies were victim of this attack. And it was a big one in the US. It was huge. And so they sued them. They sued the CISO of SolarWind, talking about he knew about the vulnerability, but he didn't do nothing about it. He misled the investors because the company went public when they knew their software was vulnerable. And guess what? Very, very easy stuff, which we're gonna talk about next Saturday, I guess. Next Saturday, if we manage to finish all this, because I'm talking too much. So they got sued because their software had a backdoors. They programmed passwords into their software. Hackers was able to find that, and they used that password. They got in, and it was a mess because they was able to push an update to thousands of SolarWind customers who become compromised, and the government agencies, the three-letter agencies, were some of the victims because they were using also SolarWind as well. So they sue them. As you can see, the executives are being targeted. Uber got breached. The ride-sharing company, they got breached not too long ago, and the judge almost, I want to say, almost sentenced the Uber CISO, I think it was chief security officer, I believe, to jail. But he basically got 3 years on probation. See that? So basically, I'm sharing all this with you to tell you that, and let me put this in the chat. Some of you who might want to read a little bit on this. I'm sharing all this to tell you that, look, security is shifting. It's not a problem of technical people no more. Executives are being held accountable. And that's where the governance comes in. That's where this governance of the cybersecurity framework comes in as well. Okay. So again, identify, we just talk about this. Cyber risks are understood. We're going in, we're trying to understand the cyber risks. And we're going in after that, we're putting protection in place. After that, if anything managed to get in, we're detecting it. We're responding to it. We're recovering if they manage to attack us. And then the governance is giving that strategic management to everything, right? It's helping us communicate security. It's helping us developing policies, which are guidance that tells the company, here is how we're going to approach security. We will talk about a lot of this once we get to domain 5. But for now, this is why I took my time to explain this, because if you understand this, then you can literally get into any company, and then you will know where your security is, like where you are contributing as a part of protecting that organization.
Excuse me, can I ask you a question? I've been on this Discord since we joined the class, and I don't see the free live training resources and stuff that you have available. Like that tab is not coming up for me, so I'm lost.
Same.
Okay.
She's
How many-
actually not alone. I just type a message on there because I wasn't seeing it at all.
Okay.
You
All
type
right,
what?
well-
I'm sorry.
No, it looks like it's a permission issue. I will take a look at that once we're done and make sure you all have access.
Okay, because I'm not getting any of the resources that you're clicking on and saying about, and that's where my mind is kind of like not on what you're teaching because I've been trying to find this for the last 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna
I don't
start.
have access to it either.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
With
thank
that,
you.
yeah, with that, it sounds like it's a permission thing. So I'll take care of it once we're done. Okay. Thank you for saying that. I thought you all had access to. So many of us. Yeah. It's not on you, it's on me. Yeah, it's on me. Okay, let's keep going. Now, let's talk about the things that's gonna be on that exam. This was just a little bit of overview. So the CIA. This has nothing to do with the Central Intelligence Agency, like I mentioned. And I've already mentioned some of this already when we were talking about that question. So confidentiality. Confidentiality is keeping secret. It's maintaining the secrecy of something, right? Prevents the intentional or unintentional disclosure of some kind of a data. So we don't care if you have access or not, if you know, Confidentiality, we're trying to keep secret, right? This is where all the need to know comes in, which is used heavily in military. This is where encryption comes in. Actually, if you were wondering, okay, wait a minute. Okay, I got confidentiality, but what is the one way of accomplishing confidentiality? What is the one way of keeping secret? Well, encryption. When you encrypt something, you're going in, you're scrambling it, right? You're taking into something that a person can read and understand. You're scrambling that into something a computer can understand. And then you're going to give out a key. So that key, unless somebody has that key, they're not going to be able to decrypt it. They're not going to be able to bring it back to life. I will talk about this in lesson 3 in the 2 Saturdays from now. Right? It's going to be a topic of cryptography and confidentiality, really technical topic. So I'm hoping to have you there. Access control is another way of we accomplish confidentiality, and obviously authentication. We want people to authenticate so that we know who they are, so that if they are accessing something, we know who they are, right? So that's very, very important. You might be asking, well, in the real world, who cares about confidentiality? Yes, government agencies. For government agency, it's better if something is not available than that particular thing to fall in the wrong hands. They better destroy the data. They better destroy the data than that data go to their enemy. So for them, confidentiality is absolutely critical. So it's important for you to understand if you work in that kind of organization, if you want to get into those government agencies and those contracts, well, you should know confidentiality is what they care about the most. That does not mean they don't care about integrity or availability. They do. But let's talk about this. So integrity is making sure that data has not been tampered with, have not been changed. It's original. One way of us accomplishing integrity is through hashing. How many people here have heard about hashes? Put those in the chat and give me some example of what a hash is. What is a hash? What is a hash algorithm?
Like a symmetric algorithm. Symmetric is only one way.
It's only one way.
It's not. Yeah, it's only one way. It's not asymmetrical with 2. So it's one way only.
Like serial number, like
absolutely. You guys, it's a bunch of numbers, and it's one way. Meaning once you hash something, you cannot reverse that. It's not like you can unhash it or go back to it, right? So it's different than encryption. I will talk about that in that cryptography section as well. It's different than encryption, but thank you for saying that. We got people saying SHA, absolutely. SHA is one. We got MD5, Message Digest 5. It's another algorithm. All of these, they do what this gentleman said. Sorry, I don't know the names now. But this gentleman said, when you hash something, you are given a string of data, just one string of data. And that data is known as a checksum. And that it's used to check integrity of something, to check to see if something is original or not. Make sure something have not been tampered with. Because with the hash, actually, I can actually demo this quickly here for you. With the hashing, if all right, let me start with encryption. So let's go to ROT 13. I'm going to demo this quickly here for you so it makes sense. Encryption is when you're taking something you can understand and turning that into something that you cannot understand. So ROT 13 is one of the algorithm that we use for this kind of stuff, for doing encryption. And right now, I'm going in, I'm saying, hey, I want to use ROT 1, which means I want to substitute one letter, right? So if I were to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right now, can you all see this, or is this too small? A little bit bigger here for you.
You can see it.
Great. So if I say A, B, C, D, this is a plain text. Again, I'm going to talk about this next week. Plain text, meaning it's a message that you can read and understand, something that have not been encrypted yet. We're still talking about confidentiality. And then you have this right here. It's known as a ciphertext, but it's a message that have been encrypted. Messages that have been encrypted. So right now, I'm using ROT1 as the algorithm, which we also call this a cipher, the algorithm. So I say A, B, C, D, you see that it starts with the B, C, D. So it's basically substituting one later. So if I said, welcome to class, this is something you can read and understand. This is something that have been encrypted. This right here is an encrypted message. And I'm simply using substituting one. Right? I'm saying, hey, instead of writing W, write another letter that follow W. Substitution. There's a substitution, there's composition. These are ways of us doing confidentiality. But what I'm showing you right now is substitution. So this is one, right? Kind of a, so you can see a visual. So integrity, I was talking to you about integrity, and I wanted to tell you that integrity is one way of checking to see if something is original or not. So Kali puts these virtual machines here. They put these virtual machines and they want you to download them so you can start using them. Well, how do you know these virtual machines are original? How do you know they have not been tampered with? Well, one way of you doing that is by looking at the sum, the checksum. I told you, again, these are keywords that you need to know for that exam, right? When somebody says checksum, they're talking about a hash. You see that on that exam, you should know that's what that is. So the sum is this right here. This is the hash. So if you see people typing a hash in the chat and you're like, what the heck is that? This is it, right? This is that one way that the gentleman was talking about here, that once you have it, it's just one way. You cannot reverse that. See, with the encryption, we can decrypt it, right? We can reverse that. So if I know the secret that you used, if I know the key, I can eventually reverse the process. With the hashing, you cannot. So it's different. Hashing and encryption is different. I get people all the time confusing the two, which is why I'm taking the time to explain this. So Holly puts this here so that once you download this, you can verify, and they're using SHA-256. This is the algorithm. So if you run this against what you just download, if you get the same exactly numbers like this, you get the same exactly hash, that tells you this is original. That tells you nobody have tampered with this. The reason is when it comes to a hash, if you change a little something, the whole thing changes. Even if you add a dot, the whole thing changes. We can see that by going to let me bring up MD5. Let me go to one of these generators online. There we go. This is a fantastic one. There we go. So MD5 is one of the algorithm that we use for hashing, of course. So let's say that I'm sending you a message and an email, and that email said, welcome to class. This is the email I'm sending you. And then I generate a hash against that email. Once you receive the email, if you run the hash against it, and then the number is different than this, then that means you should not trust that email. That means maybe there was somebody on their way when the email was coming to you, somebody capture it, change some things, and then send it where it was going. The reason is, even if you add anything, if you add a dot, the whole hash changes. As you can see, the whole hash changes. That's why we use hashes to verify if something is original or not. Because if anybody tampered with it, it's gonna completely change that particular thing. This is true to software. This is true to programs. It's true to anything. So if I'm a programmer and then I develop a tool, if I want to make sure people are getting the original tool, I just hash it so that they can eventually verify. Again, we use hashes to verify integrity. If you see that on that exam, talking about integrity and things like that, they're talking about hashes. All right, I'm gonna put this in the chat. And Abdul, I'm dropping this in the Zoom chat now since people don't have access to our Discord yet. Then please be adding these into Discord so that folks can come back to it later. All right, let's get back here. Fantastic. So ways of us accomplishing it. Oh, somebody raised their hand. Eugene, please go ahead.
Yes, Professor, if it shows that the message integrity has been compromised,
Mhm.
Is it any indication that let you know parts of it's been compromised or sections of whatever you may be sending, or just let you know it's just compromised, period?
It,
Don't
it,
tell
it
you.
yeah, it just lets you know it has been compromised.
Okay.
Yeah, basically telling you, look, you got to be careful. Don't trust this. It's not the original message.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Happens a lot with the email. You know, when the email is coming to you, somebody might be between. We call those, man in the middle. It might be in between the conversation. They capture, they add a virus to it, and then they send it to you. Then you're clicking on it, you're thinking it's that original email, but in reality, there was something that got added to it. So integrity, it's really you going in and saying, hold on a minute, since this is different, I should not trust this email. I should not trust this software. All right. Digital signature, it's another way of us accomplishing integrity or doing integrity. You'll see that on that exam. You see things like digital signatures. Absolutely, they're talking about integrity. When somebody digitally signs something, it gives you the confirmation that they are who they say they are. Right. Another one we have is availability. Accessible when we need it. Availability is important. And I didn't mention the industry where integrity will become very critical. The industry is banking. Oh, yeah. Banking, money, transactions, that kind of stuff. Oh, integrity is a priority for these people. Look, if your money is sitting in the bank, you don't want to go there one day and the money have changed. All of a sudden, it was $100. Now it's 30, right? They don't like that. People don't like that. So integrity for them is extremely important. Extremely important. So as you get hired based on the industry you're in, you might want to kind of keep that in mind. Availability. Is it available when we need it? Redundancy, a way of implementing two things at the same time so that if one thing fails, the other one is able to pick up. If we do that, we're accomplishing availability. Fault tolerance. This is it is the ability of designing a system so that it can withstand a fault. If it fails, if something goes down, we're able to operate, right? I'm going to teach you things like RAID. Who's you have heard about RAID systems? Yeah, if you've done some IT work, RAID is absolutely right. Using multiple hard drives to kind of increase the speed, but also have the redundancy that we're talking about. Regular maintenance, it's another way of doing this exactly thing. Availability is available when we need it. Think about companies like online companies, the Amazons, right? Amazon.com. They don't have a physical store. If their website goes down, the Amazon makes like $10 million every minute. Literally, $10 million every minute goes through Amazon.com. So their website going down is not acceptable. So that availability is a top notch for them. Right? They don't care if a product on their website it's different, it have been changed. They can care less. They can fix that later. But availability for them, it's a top priority. So they do everything. They put a redundancy in place. They put a CDNs, content delivery network. I'll teach you this content delivery network in place so that that website can stay up for forever, I guess. Okay. So far, any questions for me?
Not a question, but I have somebody that's trying to get on live on our group right now.
Oh, you want to send them the link?
Yeah, they're waiting right now in the area. It just needs somebody to admit them.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'll just let them in. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
There we go. Well, all right, Zoom. That's good. This meeting is being recorded. Everybody knows that. Okay. Let's talk about threats and vulnerabilities and risk. And I probably won't finish this section, guys, because I'm moving a little bit slower. So we're going to kind of save the zero trust stuff for next week, which is good. We're still great. So threats, vulnerabilities, and risk. What is a risk? Let me ask you this. What is a risk? In your own words, what is a risk? Put that in the chat. What is a risk? A potential problem that can happen. I like that. A risk is being hacked. Okay, okay. Potential for loss or damage. Yes, yes. Likelihood. That's the word I was looking for. It's a likelihood, right? It's something that haven't happened yet, but there's a possibility. There is a potential, according to some of my people here, right? There's a potential of this thing happening, a possibility. So a threat is something that can mess you up. So think about like your enemy, I guess, right? Your enemy. In computer systems, we have what we normally call threat agents. Threat agents could be really anybody. Malware, which stands for malicious software. An insider threat, somebody who works for you. And advanced persistence with natural disaster, like God-made stuff, nation states, country after other countries. All these are threats. Threats, right? So threats is something that can mess you up. A risk is the likelihood, right? Likelihood of that thing happening. Here is a few things that you need to understand, because most people in cybersecurity, they don't get this. Look, guys, we are not in control of a threat. If someone is going to attack you, they will. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't control them attacking you. If China, I apologize beforehand if you're from China and you're here right now, China is trying to attack your company, they will attack it. What you can do is focus on what you can control, which is the vulnerability. Threat is outside of our control. We can do threat intelligence, absolutely. It kind of help for us to know who is out there that can attack us, who is the bad guys that is attacking the healthcare system, who are the enemies that is attacking the education system. Like that helps by knowing their IOCs. I'm going to teach you this in one of these chapters. They're indicator of a compromise, right? IOCs, knowing the domain they use, the domain the bad guys use, knowing the IP address they use, knowing the hashes they use, right? That's all IOCs, all indicator of compromise. Knowing this stuff help us, absolutely. But we should not obsessed over threats because it's outside of our control. What we should focus on is the vulnerability. Vulnerability is a weakness. It's a flaw. It's a flaw into the design of the system, a flaw into the computer, a flaw into the software. Really, unpatched systems, those are 0 days, right? Untrained users. As you can see, we are in control of this. If we have unpatched systems that are not up to date, hey, let's patch them. Yeah, let's just patch them. Well, what if we have 0 days? Well, there are ways we can, keep an eye on the 0 days. Oh, by the way, 0 day, it's a vulnerability that you don't know it exists. It's some kind of a weakness that you don't even know is there in the first place. Basically, the book definition of a 0 day is that 0 day, it's a weakness that the vendor of that program doesn't know it exists, which is really not that true. A 0 day, it's any weakness that doesn't have a fix, right? Even if we know that vulnerability is there, if we don't have a fix for it, it's still a 0 day.
Would it also be if it's not exploited?
Sorry, go ahead, say that again.
Would it also be if it's not exploited, if that 0 day is not exploited?
Well, if it's not exploited and we know it exists, yes, it's still a 0 day.
Okay.
And if it's being exploited, meaning they're taking advantage of it, we don't have a fix for it, it is a 0 day.
Yes, sir.
All right, but we are in charge of this. Now we have a lot of AI capabilities, systems that can kind of keep an eye on how systems are functioning and things to kind of keep an eye on things that doesn't look normal, those abnormal. We call these IDS and IPS systems. They have these capabilities. It's known as behavior-based analysis. I'm going to teach you that, where we are detecting things based on how they're behaving, right? But again, we are in control of the vulnerability. We should focus on the vulnerabilities. By the way, between me and you, if companies can just patch, oh my God, if company can just patch their system, that's going to fix like 95% of all the issues. No joke.
Is that
95.
what happened with the airlines when they tried to run that patch or software and then it shut down the systems for a while?
The recent attack with the
Yes.
CrowdStrike.
Well, it wasn't an attack, but I thought they said it was like the company who ran whatever they were running the software and it messed up the systems for them to fly, and that's why they couldn't fly.
Yeah,
That wouldn't be considered like the 0 days.
well, not really. That's a little bit different because
Okay.
the companies themselves, they didn't update. They didn't went in and do the patching and things. CrowdStrike did. That's a case study of next Saturday. I'm excited about
Okay.
next lesson. Yeah. So good job. But look, guys, if you patch your system, a lot of issues goes away. A lot of the attack that have happened in the past, hackers are always using the old vulnerabilities, the old weaknesses. So once you get ahead, guys, go in there, start with the patching your system. I understand that when you are in industries like the hospitals, you can just be patching things. You might be breaking things as you're thinking you're patching things, right? They have proprietary software. In that case, you're going to have to be creative with your solutions. But most of the time, if your business allows you to patch, do patch. Even Microsoft, they have a patch Tuesday. Every Tuesday, they release some kind of a patches that you can apply. Exploit is that technique, that code that the enemy can use to take advantage of the vulnerability. Risk is the probability, like I mentioned. This is where the threat overlap with the vulnerability. I'm telling you all this to tell you guys, look, for the attacker, for the threat to attack you, both of these two things have to exist, which means you must be vulnerable for them to be able to attack you, right? There must be some kind of vulnerability that they can take advantage of. So if you were to Google this right now, they're going to tell you things like risk equals threat times vulnerability. You're probably going to see that formula on that exam, right? Basically, all they're telling you is that for something to be classified as risk, these two things have to exist. A threat must be there, but a vulnerability also must exist. Because the enemy can be as bad as the enemy they want to be. The threat can be the biggest threat. If we're not vulnerable, they can't really hurt us. They can't attack us because we don't have any vulnerability they can use against us. But the tricky part, here's the tricky part. I just mentioned about 0 days. So going around and talking about it, we're not vulnerable, it's more like you're wrong because there are vulnerabilities that you don't even know they exist in the first place. Let me keep going. So a few things about this risk. Look, guys, we are in the business of managing risk. At the end of the day, in security, that's all we do. You are bringing the risk to a manageable level, to an acceptable level. I'm going to talk about that once we get to the risk management section. So remember, risk is the probability for a threat touching the vulnerability. Threat is outside of our control, like I mentioned, so we should focus on the vulnerability. Even then, we should focus on the vulnerability that matter to the organization. If you remember when I started this lesson, I told you got to know where your critical data is located, where like the criticality of the data that's within your organization. So if you know there are servers that are very critical and those servers are in the cloud, yeah, start there. Start your security there. If you work for a small company and maybe you're like one person IT or one person security, don't be like, oh my God, how can I ever do this? Start with the critical stuff, and then over time, secure the other stuff. But start securing the things that the company care about the most. So it is impossible to completely eliminate the risk. There is no such a thing as a risk-free environment. That doesn't exist. There's always that probability. There's always a threat. And thinking that you're not at risk, it doesn't help at all. I have a lot of stories to tell you about this, but I'm trying to see if I can finish this section before I let you guys go. We have a few more minutes left here. But risk mitigation, it's about finding the right balance between security and functionality. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said the availability issue. You have to balance security and availability. A 100% security system does not exist. A 100% security business does not exist. The only thing that if something's 100% secure, it has zero value because nobody can use it. Nobody can use it. So we got to make it available. We got to make this thing functional, and therefore we need to balance the security with the security with the functionality. Keep going. Non-repudiation. Guys, if you have any questions or if anything, please drop that in the chat. Let me see how many I have left here. We're pretty good. I'm going to just get to zero trust and I'm going to pause there. And we're going to talk about zero trust next week. Then we're going to go over the questions. These were the questions that I was telling you about. So the questions are going to be from this week and the next week as well. So please don't miss next week. It's like I'm begging you. Okay. So non-repudiation. Non-repudiation, it's ensuring that someone or an entity cannot deny sending a message, taking action. This is going to absolutely be on that exam. You're probably going to see 1 or 2 questions on that exam talking about non-repudiation. Remember, non-repudiation is making sure that people cannot deny doing some particular thing, right? We're going in and we're establishing accountability. We're preventing people from saying, hey, it's not me. Well, we know it's you. Why? Because we're tracking everything that you're doing. We have an audit trail of everything that you are doing. In fact, this is what computers do. Computers keep track of everything that you're doing. If you ever done something on a computer, be like, I guess nobody sees me. No, don't do it. Computer keep track of everything that you're doing. Every click, every website you visit, everything. Like everything. Computer keep track of that. So we do that for non-repudiation purposes. So people can come back and be like, that's not me, right? Non-repudiation. Digital signatures, it's another way of us ensuring non-repudiation. Why? Remember, digital signatures provides a proof. It gives us the hash, provides a proof of the originality of whatever that is. It could be a document, it could be an email, somebody can digitally sign those things. And because we can see you are who you say you are, and because we can verify your signature, that means you can come back and repudiate that. In the real world, think about when you go to deposit a check at the bank. What do? Let me ask you this. If you've ever deposited a check, I know a lot of us now get, those direct deposit now. But if you ever deposited a check at the bank, what do they ask you to do before you can deposit it? What do they ask you? Got people saying
You sign, right?
you must sign it. Yeah. Yeah. Why do they require you to sign it? Got to insert your card into the ATM, right? Okay. So you can authenticate it was you. Yes, you cannot deny it. Absolutely. So that you can come back later with another count check and be like, it wasn't me, and I'm here to deposit my check. No. Once you sign it, that signature is yours, belongs to you, right? The idea is that nobody can sign as you. That signature is supposed to be unique to you. Therefore, you can't really come back and be like, no, that wasn't me. So in the physical world, we ask people to sign their check so that they cannot repudiate that later on. So PKI, this is the public key infrastructure. We're going to talk about this in, like I mentioned, cryptography section. We're going to come back a little bit on this because computer does this a little bit differently than what I'm talking about right now. Okay. And then you got companies like DocuSign that help with this kind of stuff. And some cool example of non-repudiation, including SMIME, it depends on who you ask. This is a secure way of assigning email. If you want to encrypt, doing like an end-to-end encryption of your email, this is one of the protocol that we can use to do that as well. Right? Amazon uses HTTPS. Not Amazon. Every website uses HTTPS now. Adobe Sign, the DocuSign, you name it. All these things, they all require this non-repudiation. Even your good buddy Bitcoin with the blockchain. I'm going to talk about that in that section as well. Does use non-repudiation with hashing as well. Few other terminologies that you need to be aware of: authentication, authorization, and accounting. It starts with the I. Right? It's usually known as I quadruple A. Depends on who you ask. I, A, A, A. This is the authentic identification. There we go. I make I say, yeah, I know what that is. That's identification. Absolutely. Then we have the authentication, authorization, and accounting. We can put another A here for auditing. But auditing and accounting, they're like the same. They do the same thing. But if you ever see where they said I quadruple A, don't tell them they're wrong. Some books, some books do talk about this stuff like this. But what is this? Well, identification. Identification, we're trying to know who you are, right? You show up to some kind of a location, they're asking, who are you? And then you have to provide your identity. You say, hey, my name is Eugene. Got it. All right, you are who you are. But guess what? All the 39 of you, 38 of you who is here can claim they are Eugene. Anybody can right now and say, hey, I am Eugene. No, I am Eugene. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie with Eddie Murphy and Lawrence, the movie. It's about slave movie. It's one of my favorite movie. It's called Life. That movie, Life. They're asking them, okay, who is the baby of the father? And everybody's it's coming forward. It's like, I am the baby of the father, and I am the baby of the father, right? And they end up not knowing who the baby of the father was, because anybody can claim their identity. Anybody can say, hey, I am Francois. I am Francois. I am Francois. It's like, oh, how do I know you are Francois? Well, that's where the authenticity, the authentication comes in. Right? You can be like, okay, I am Eugene. It's like, okay, well, how do I know you're Eugene? Right? Well, that's when I challenge the identity. The way we challenge the identity is by authenticate you. We are going in, we're verifying the identity. We're like, whoa, hold on a minute. You say you're Eugene. I apologize, Eugene. It's because you're on the video and I can see you right there. We're good, right? All right, fantastic. Yeah. So it's like, oh, you're saying you're this person, but how do I know you are the person you're saying you are? Well, it's by you asking you follow-up questions. The way computer does this through systems is when you try to authenticate into some kind of a website, the first thing they ask you, hey, what is your username? You provide that. You say, my username is Eugene. Fantastic. Well, anybody can say that because that's your identity. The username is your identity. They need to challenge that identity. And the way they do that is by asking you for the password. So that's why you see all these websites, they ask you for the password. Like, oh, okay, you're saying you are this person, but how do we know? Well, type in your password. And once you put in the password, they're challenging the identity, and therefore they're authenticating you. So that's kind of important to know from that perspective, because that exam is going to kind of want you to know at that level, right? So authentication is when we're going in and we're kind of challenging the identity. The way we do that is through passwords in computer systems, but in the real world, they can ask you for your drive license. Imagine you knock on my door right now, and then I've never seen you before, and you're like, I am Rebecca. Like, okay, well, how do I know you're Rebecca? Well, then they say, okay, here's my drive license. Well, because I trust the DMV, who gave you the drive license and the drive license have your picture on it, I can then authenticate you. I can be like, oh yeah, you are who you say you are, right? The authentication process. But you also have the biometrics. Absolutely, that comes in mind. Things like fingerprint, facial recognition, and that kind of stuff. By the way, this is the most strong form of authentication. CompTIA might ask you a question is like, which one of the following is the most stronger form of authentication? Biometric, the bio you, or anything that identify who you are as an individual. If I'm authenticating using my finger, well, for someone to authenticate as me, they need to cut off my finger. And that is really, really hard to do. So biometric is the strongest form of authentication. You have MFA, multi-factor authentication. This is where we ask people to provide a different way of authentication. This is where we said, okay, who are you? I am this person. What is your PIN? This is my PIN. All that stuff is the stuff you know. Then I can ask you, okay, what is your drive license? Or what is your credit card number? Or credit card. Drive license is something you have. So if I authenticate you based on what you know and what you have, it's called multi-factor authentication. I will come back to this in a later section. Once we authenticate you, the reason why you're authenticating is because you want to access some stuff. So that's where the authorization comes in. Authorization is determining what an authenticated user has access to. Look, not because you're authenticated, it doesn't mean you should have access to everything. That does not mean you should have access to everything. Well, we need to authorize you. What are you authorized to do once you've already authenticated? I usually tell people, like, if you're my visitor and I welcome you into my house, actually, let me ask you this. If you're my visitor, you're my guest, I welcome you into my house, well, does that mean you should start using my refrigerator? That means you start going into the oven and start heating up, fixing yourself a sandwich. It's absolutely not, right? You are not authorized to do that. Yes, I did authenticate you. I welcome you to my house, but that does not mean you're authorized to do anything you want. That's the same thing with these computer systems. Not because you're signed in, it doesn't mean you should have access to everything else. Right? So we're going to authorize you to have access to certain things. So the way we do that in computer systems, there's two concepts. These are going to be on that exam. And I kind of briefly mention them here right now. We have a role-based access control, also known as RBAC, right? RBAC. This is where we're going in and we're assigning you permission based on the role, based on the kind of role that you do at the company. Companies, they do this using what we normally call Active Directory. Who's you have heard about that software from Microsoft? AD, Active Directory. Yeah. There's one tool that you need to learn is AD. You can also learn the Azure AD, the cloud one. It's okay, right? But you got to learn Active Directory. You got to learn Active Directory because that's used by a lot of enterprises companies. So role-based, we're going in, we're assigning permission to people based on what they do at the company. And then you have this attribute-based access control. We're giving out authorization based on different attributes. This right here, ABAC, is really what zero trust is. Literally, you will learn that next week once we break down zero trust so you can understand it. But attribute-based authentication, it's where like we're literally asking you, who are you? Where are you joining from? Like what location? What computer are you using? What MAC address of the computer you're using? What IP address? What country? Like we're taking all these different attributes before we authenticate you. Again, authorization. Last but not least, it's keeping track of what you have access to. So once we authorized you into the system, we got to keep an eye on what you're doing so that you can't come back and be denying things. Right? This is known as auditing or audit, or we're logging the activities that you're doing as well. So if you ever use the work computer and then do something that they don't want you to do, don't do it. Because they're literally keeping track of all that stuff. All right, don't do it. All right. We got how many quick tips when he tells you you might see an exam? Believe me, your chance of seeing it in that. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. Abdul passed the exam. Abdul in the chat passed the exam. Okay. Last thing we're going to talk about is gap analysis. Yes, you want to go do the security, but where should you begin? Well, you should start by knowing how vulnerable you are by performing that gap analysis, by assessing your current environment and to know where you are, and by knowing your desire state, like where do you want to go? So like, okay, our security is at 20%. Let's push that to 50%. So gap analysis is it's a method of assessing your environment and try to identify the current state and identify the desired state, and then look at the gap, right? Look at the gap between the two, and then develop a plan of action, right? Why would you do this? Well, to improve your security. Absolutely. Compliance. We're going to talk about compliance in more depth. Risk management, optimizing your resources, and obviously for strategic planning. Gap analysis. I don't think this is a new term that got introduced into the 701 version of the exam. I really don't think you will see a question on that exam about gap analysis. But even if you do, you know what it is now, right? You're assessing the gap between your environment, trying to know where you are and where you want to be. Okay. Abdul or anybody, any questions, anything that I haven't seen in the chat that I haven't responded to? CompTIA confirms you are, say you are okay. Yeah, absolutely. Proof of what have been, okay. All right. Looks like there's no question. Fantastic. So this is where I'm going to pass. We're going to start with the questions, but there's a few things that I want to show you. There's a few things that I want to show you so that you can know. Let's go back here. I'm going to show you the resources here, since this is like officially the first day, so that you know the kind of resources that's out there that you can take advantage of. So the first one, there is a complete course that I recorded. It talks about a lot of the things that we're talking about now. This is on the website. If you say, you know what, I want to get a head start, or I just want to, I don't want to wait for these 2 months that we're going to do this for, you can grab this. It has everything you needed: the book, the videos, the practicing questions, all of it. It's in here. And this is, if you are a self-study person, this is all you need. There's also the book, the Get Certified and Get Ahead. And if you enjoy reading, I encourage you to grab a copy, and that should be in the resource section of the this right here. So there's a book. I'm gonna pin this so it's always here. This book, grab it. It's a fantastic book. I read it when I was preparing for my Security Plus exam, and it's easy to understand. So if you enjoy reading, please read chapter 1 of that book. It's going to introduce you to some of the core concepts of cyber. If you just want to grab your practicing exams, I have those on the website as well. I think they're like 20 some bucks. But if you also want some labs, actually, this is the whole reason why I wanted to bring you here. It was this is the main one. There are some labs that's hosted by CompTIA. They're not hosted by us, by the African Institute of Technology. This is from CompTIA. It's in the browser. I'm gonna go ahead and sign in here quickly so that I can show you this. Because CompTIA give you a whole year access if you do get this. And you can get it from us, it's cheaper, or you can get it from CompTIA if you'd like. I'd like you to get it from us since you're here, if you can. So here, once you sign into your CompTIA, once you are logged in, if you get it from us, I'll send you a redeem key. Even if you get it from CompTIA, they're going to send you a redeem key. And you're like, okay, where should I get it from? So let me bring it up here where you see it. But once you have the redeem key, you put that in here, they're going to give you access to CompTIA labs. And let me go ahead and bring them so you get to see them here. There we go. These are all the labs right here. Let me go ahead and turn on one. As that one is coming up, let me show you the other resources that we have here. So we got discounted vouchers, guys. Discounted vouchers. If you want a voucher to take your Security Plus or any of the CompTIA exams, you can grab it here. If you're in a different country, like you're in Africa, talk to us because it should be cheaper because you're in a developing country. The prices are not this. It should be way cheaper. The labs that I'm talking about is this. So if you get it here, it's like $19.99. Yeah, 99. And all we do, basically, we just buy it from CompTIA and then send you the key. Because we are an institution, they give us a discounted, access to these things. I think if you get it from them, it's like over $200. But that's that there. We just want to push all those savings on to you. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, it's because I've had some people saying, hey, look, my computer can't handle this stuff, right? My computer can handle the Kali, the VirtualBox and things. Therefore, that's why I want you to get this. Unfortunately, it's not from me, so I can't really kind of just hand it to you. It's from CompTIA. It's hosted by them, and they give you a whole year access to this. So you got all these labs, and they are all part of the Security Plus. For example, we're just talking about gap analysis. The first lab here is you configuring a gap analysis. So if I bring back the machine that I just launched, it's still coming, but this is the lab environment. I'm going to give you like a little quickly guide to this. In the left-hand side, you see the instructions. This is all the instructions for the lab. It's going to be the scenario, the objective, and things. In the left-hand side here, also still in the right-hand side, you'll see the resource section. In the resources section, that's where you have your VMs, your virtual machines. They're here. That's where you see the username and the passwords as well, right? In this case, since this is a Windows machine, we have to do Control-Alt-Delete to unlock it. So you see this little star here, little star-looking icon. When you click on that, it gives you a few other keys. One of them being Control-Alt-Delete. So you click on that, it should allow you to sign in. So there I can just go ahead and press on the password here. The password is going to be typed in, and I can sign in as whoever that user is. And if I go back to instructions, I can just start walking through this. All right, there we go. I click on next. I'm going to tell you, hey, connected to computer one. This is the computer that I'm connected to. And even if you click on that, it's going to take you to that same place. Once you're done signing in, you can put a check mark on it. All right, then you go to the second page here. And they're going to tell you, okay, go ahead and do this and that. Once you're done, you click on check mark and check mark and check mark. And as you can see, there's a little tab here that keeps going up, telling you like where you are. So that's kind of a pretty cool. To kind of, as like you're walking through it, they're telling you what to do, you come right here, you do it. They're telling you what to do again, you come right here, you do it. Okay. This is not the best. In fact, in some places, in some situations, I've kind of advised students against this. But I understand last week when I asked you if you have Security Plus, you're saying no. And so some of you might be new to this, and I highly recommend this. So it can expose you to some of the tools. You can look at the Kali, look at the interfaces of the kind of tools that we play with. So highly recommend this. If you want to take advantage of it, let us know, and I will get you the key to accessing that stuff. And that's it. And then I also have a paid live training for Security Plus if you want to be part of that. Okay. I want to just do that as soon as I finish to teach so that you know the resources. All right. So if anybody else wants these things, you can always tell them that those resources are available. So how do I get access to the lab? So you just need to sort of like buy the key. Let me put this in the chat. And as I'm grabbing these, guys, look, we're done for the day. It's 1 o'clock. We're done for the day. As I'm grabbing these links, can you please come off mute and ask your questions, or put those questions in the chat.